right, well, welcome everybody to today's Canvas Q&A questions. It is not Canvas Studio. This is for Canvas. I apologize for that little faux pas there. I had the wrong slide pulled up. So anyway, quick corrections and we're all there. Just want to welcome everyone to the Canvas Q&A. This is really just sort of an open type of forum that we can use to maybe troubleshoot, answer questions that you might have. We have several questions on the that we do have on the Q&A document out there. I appreciate those of you who put the questions out there. Lots of great questions, man. Just way too many. Always like, I love the little game of Stump the Trainer. It's a lot easier to do than you think. But I do have lots of resources that I can grab a hold of, as well as other people that help that have a little bit more knowledge in Canvas than I do to find answers for you as we go through. With that, hopefully one of the things that you are discovering, if you haven't already, Canvas is a very versatile tool with all kinds of little tricks and tips and things that you can use to enhance your Canvas experience. Different schools do different things and use it different ways in Canvas. And I have discovered, I'm always discovering new things. I hope that you will too, as you get used to using Canvas a little bit. It's almost like turning over a rock and saying, wow, I didn't know Canvas can do that. And I still, after all of these years, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely. You don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. It's completely optional. I always like for people to do it, but we can find out what you're eating today if that's okay.
Oh, it's normal, my go-to. Everybody will
Your
be
go-to?
surprised. McDonald's.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just had some of my wife's spaghetti a little bit earlier. She made some lot. There's just the two of us here at home. Our daughter's grown and moved away, but she makes enough spaghetti to feed an army. And just like with any kind of good spaghetti or chili, it just gets better with time.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
how or why that works, but it does work that way. So I appreciate you guys again, and also Canvas is also improving all the time. There's all kinds of new things that are coming out with Canvas, so it's almost impossible to know everything that there is to know about Canvas. And so I stopped trying years ago. I just sort of go through, but as I find things and discover things, it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna start using that, or maybe I won't. Really find your little groove within Canvas, but with always the idea maybe of improving. With that, I'm going to flip over to the Q&A document. I did my level best over the time that we've had together to sort of go through and make sure that I'm not only giving you a response. Sometimes that response is Canvas doesn't do that. But I always throw at the end of that word yet, because you never know. Canvas is, like I said, it is one of those tools and features that we constantly listen to, those who use Canvas. And we have a large community out there of users. You are a part of that community. You might notice that whenever you go into the question mark help button on your left-hand global navigation menu, you will see submit an idea. Um, is one of or submit a feature idea or something like that. That's where a lot of our improvements come from you. And so just know that you have a voice in what Canvas is. It's not a tool that was built by a bunch of eggheads in a basement and only meant for technical users. This is a tool that's used for education, educators, and education ease as well. So just keep that in mind as we go through some of these things. Just in sort of looking at our Q&A document, we talked very early on about extra credit. And so this was something that people were interested in on a quiz or just in Canvas in general. There is a little tutorial on how to give extra credit. One of the things that you can do is to give a 0-point base value test and then add test score, add credit to that particular question, whether it's a question or an actual assignment. So if you are one of those that count assignment totals, for example, if you're grading your students based on the accumulation of points in a course, you can create an extra credit assignment, make it worth 0 points. And then when you add your grade into that grade book, whether it's 100 or a 50 or however many points you're giving points above than what the total number of points are allowed in the course, which is by definition extra credit. That same tool, that same rule applies if you are weighing your grades. And some of you weigh your grades, and you can create a group, an assignment group that is extra credit, and then you can weigh that above 100%. So if everything is weighed at 100%, your extra credit can be weighed at 5%, and your total would be 105. And if students participate in the extra credit, then they can earn up to 5% of above 100% of their course grade. But if they choose not to attempt it, they're not penalized because 100% of their grade is weighed in the other assignment groups. I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions over extra credit and how it's applied? I can certainly demonstrate anything for you as well as we go through. I can pull up one of my courses here and show you some things in those courses too, if you like.
I think I'm good on the extra credit. What
Okay.
about the others?
It may be helpful, Matt, to go ahead and do a quick demo because
Yeah.
I know like Suzanne or Susan is new and Stephanie is also new.
Yeah. So fantastic. So Susan and Stephanie, let me ask you guys this. Do you guys weigh your grades in Canvas, or do you use a total points in terms of what students can earn in your course?
I use a total points there. I
Okay.
mean, they have the auto grade on there, but with the new technology, with AI and stuff, you really have to waver to make sure that the author is authenticated with the student.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it varies. I mean, you have to use a good judgment on whether the answer is correct to the
Right.
information that's been instructed.
Yeah,
But
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of one of those just one of those little things there. But if you have, for example, like on a test or something like that, if you wanted to add extra credit to a test, you always have the ability in a course. Let me just go to one of my little courses here. Good old assignments demo. And this is just one of my little demo courses that I have out here that has stuff set up in it. And if, for example, you wanted to give extra credit on a quiz, right? You actually have a couple of ways you can do that. It's there's kind of a low tech way and there's a little more of a higher tech way. Both of them are kind of six one way, half a dozen another. But if you go out to, I'm just going to go out to a quiz really quickly. And let's just say on this quiz here, go out to where all the questions are. And on this quiz here, you'll notice how all of my questions have point values assigned them. Okay. I can create a question worth 0 points if I want to. Just way down here at the bottom. I could create just a little, true false. We'll just make one really quickly here. There we go. I can just kind of create a little true false question, is this question extra credit or whatever? And in doing that, I'll make that true. But the point value, I'm going to make it a 0 point based question, essentially. But now what I'll have to do is I'll have to go in and add the points for the students. So when I go out to look at a student, this is just for a quiz here. If I go out to look for a student, let me just go to return. And this is just on a quiz. So in the speed grader where the tests are done, well, I don't have anybody that actually did one. But if I did, let me see if I've got somebody out here that did it. Nope. Nobody did that one. Dang it. All right. But anyway, but what I would do is I can find that question, award the 2 points above 0, and it gives them extra credit. Now, another way you can do this, guys, and I think this is probably better, is to go into your grade book and you have your weekly quiz, or maybe one of these is a quiz here. Let's see. This is not a weekly quiz or whatever. And you can see that it's worth 100 points. And a student made an 80, but they got the extra credit right, then I can just simply go in and override it to an 85 or whatever if it was worth 5 points or something like that. So you can always go in and add extra credit to a test. So for example, if they made a perfect 100 and I want to give them 5 extra points, I can always go in and just add 5 extra points just like that. So it is sort of a way, I think, is just going through and just assigning the extra credit to their existing grade, piling on the extra credit if they did it, and then that way you're good to go. Okay, that's just on a test or whatever.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do, and I think I like that way better than trying to create a question. I mean, you have to kind of create a question if it is an extra credit question or whatever. But if you wanted to make an extra credit assignment, then you can create an assignment in Canvas. Go to my assignments menu here. And I can simply add an assignment here by creating a new assignment. And we'll call this my extra credit assignment. And I can make this 0 points. Okay. And the reason I'd make it 0 points is if I am using points, a total calculation there, if I add points there, it's adding to the overall total as a whole. And so if the student didn't do the extra credit, they'd be penalized. Okay. So by making it worth 0 points, and by the way, you can make this any type of assignment. You could have it no submission, so it's something they do in class. You could make it on paper, that they do something on paper, and it creates a gradebook column for you. Or you can make them submit something to you online or whatever, like a file upload or whatever. Okay. Whatever, however you choose. I'm just going to make it a no submission for now. And then I can come down and save and publish this. And now I've got a 0 point based assignment. When I go out to grade the student, or just in the grade book itself, I can find that extra credit assignment, probably at the end here somewhere. Here it is. And notice that's worth 0 points, but just by adding, 10 points there, then that exceeds, that's going to give them extra credit essentially, and it's going to add to their overall total of 10 points or however many points you want to make it. That's if you're calculating by your grade is being calculated based on the number of points a student accumulates during the semester. For those of you who weigh your grades, remember in your assignments menu is where that's done. And this is where you would create your categories of assignments. Okay, you create your groups or categories. For those of you who are recovering Blackboard users, those are categories that you used to create in your grade book. Okay, in Canvas we do it in assignments. We create groups, and we call them groups, not categories, because we have to be different. Okay, but once you create your groups, then you make sure that your assignments are where they belong in the whatever assignments you have, or assigned to the correct group, right? Quizzes and discussions and so on. And by putting these items into their correct group, right? More discussions here. There's writing assignments and things. Got all kinds of fun things happening here.
And if I may, Matt, I
Yeah.
suggest that even if you don't weight your grades in your syllabus, that it still helps with your organization if you add categories and groups here, just because you can use the filter in the grade book, and it helps the students kind of organize the course and understand it. If you add
I
groups,
strongly agree. Absolutely.
even
Now,
if you don't do weighted grades.
Yes, absolutely. And even if you don't, because there's a couple of things that you can do with, for example, even if I don't weigh my grades, by categorizing my discussions together. Okay. One of the things that you can do by grouping your assignments. You create your groups and you call it whatever you want. And if you're weighing your grades, obviously look at that syllabus. Okay, it's going to tell you these are my minor quizzes, these are my weekly discussions, these are whatever they are, and you're going to create groups for those. And then as you create assignments, or if you have assignments already in your course, then you play a little game of sorting. You sort the items into the right group. And for those of you, I mentioned my wife's spaghetti earlier. My wife is also a sorter. You know the type. In fact, one of the little things I like to do for her is I buy her M&Ms, I buy her Skittles, and then I sit back and watch the show, because she puts them on her lap and she divides them all by the colors of the rainbow, and she has to eat them in the color of the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, in that order. And it's kind of fun. So if you like therapeutic sorting, this is a wonderful way to therapeutically sort your assignments and things here. Okay. But I do recommend that if you do have any leftover categories or groups, for example, sometimes when you import things from other places, you might see like migrated quizzes or imported projects or whatever. You can simply delete anything that's not being used just to clean it up. Okay. But once you have these items in their correct categories, even if you do not weigh your grades, let me go ahead and move this up to the quizzes and stuff. Delete that. Okay. And now I've got all of my assignments sorted somehow. In fact, I'll rename this extra credit just so we have it. A little group. And what I've done is I've created a group for my extra credit work, whatever that is. And it could be more than one assignment. All right. But even if I am just categorizing these by group, if you want to drop the lowest score, for example, so if I have discussions here, and maybe I've got a slew of them, I've just only have 3 here just as my little example for 3 of them. But imagine if throughout the course of the semester, you may have 6 or 7 weekly discussions or something that you're using, depending on if you use a lot of class discussion. If you want to drop the lowest score by creating a group and organize them in a group, if I come over to the right-hand side and click these 3 dots here and just simply go to edit, you're going to see that you have your group name there, but you'll also see number of scores to ignore for each student in this group. And you can see that if I put a 1 here, I'm telling Canvas to ignore the 1 lowest score for each student in that group of discussions. And that'll be a movable feast, right, through the course of a semester. So a student A will come in and they'll do really well on their first discussion and they'll bomb the second one. Canvas will take away the second discussion grade and only leave the first one. Let's say they take the third discussion and they do even worse in the second one. Canvas reinstates the second one, takes away the third one. Over the course of the semester, it'll be adding and removing the lowest grade all throughout the semester. And then that's just a way you can kind of create a little safety net for your students. If they forget an assignment or do really poorly on one, you can create that for them. It's completely up to you. I always say, the dean in me is shouting right now, be sure and tell them to put that in your syllabus and things if you are making any of those kinds of rules regarding extra credit or regarding dropping the lowest score. Make sure you reflect that in your course policies. Okay. I may or may not have, participated in many grade challenges throughout my career. They're not fun. Notice that you can drop the highest score. Now, I don't know what kind of sadistic maniac would do that, but you do have the ability to drop the highest score there. I ask people all the time, why do you think that's there? And they're like, well, if you want to, grade on the curve and, blah, 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 and all this other researchy stuff, that's fine. But I'm not going to be that guy. So I'm never going to drop your highest score. I'm not going to say, do as good as you can on these discussions. I'm going to take away your highest. Okay. Not that guy, but you can drop the lowest. Notice also that you can also choose to never drop an assignment. So maybe you have one of the assignments in this discussions group that is important enough to it to be calculated regardless if it's the lowest or not. If that's the case, you can add an assignment. You can add as many as you want. Okay, you can add several assignments if you want them to be calculated come heck or high water. Okay, same thing with number of scores. You can also up that too if you wanted to. It's really up to you. I think typical practice is just we drop the one lowest score. Maybe if we even do that. Okay, but in doing that, you create a rule in your discussions. And naturally, you can do that, in your quizzes and things like that. One of the caveats I would mention here, though, folks, is to make sure that when you group your assignments, is that they all have the same point value, whether it's 10 points, 20 points, 30 points, or whatever, if you're going to drop the lowest score, right? It stands to reason if I have a 10-point assignment, a 20-point assignment, it's always going to drop the 10-point assignment, right? So that is one thing to consider, particularly if you're grouping quizzes and things like that. Now, I just kind of threw all my quizzes and midterm and final into one pile just for the sake of this. But naturally, I probably would separate those out within a different group for my major exams versus my quizzes, depending on how you do things. Now, if you weigh your grades, okay, once you've created your groups, for the different items. And once you have the items in those groups, and by the way, you don't have to have anything in your course to go ahead and set this up. As you add assignments and quizzes, you'll be asked to associate it with whatever group you want it to associate it with. So if I create a new assignment, for example, it'll ask me, what group do you want to put that in? And I can say, well, I'll put this in my individual assignments group or whatever, okay? And I can assign it to a group when I'm building things. That's true with discussions, quizzes, and assignments. When you're ready to weigh your grades, so all we've done now is just sorted them. I can come up here to these 3 dots way up here at the top, and I can choose this assignment groups weight. Okay. And in doing this, it's going to ask me if I want to weight final grade based on assignment groups. And by clicking this little checkbox, you're going to see now that I can come in here. Oops, I don't know why that 30 is there. Oops, I'm going to have to do a little trick here. Hang on just a moment. I got to refresh. For some reason, it's doing that goofy little. There we go. Do that again. Okay. Take away that for a minute. All right. You can see here that now I can start plugging in the percentages. That's all I need to do. This is a thing of beauty, okay? Because I know in Blackboard, you had to go in and create your categories. Then you had to go out and basically assign those categories certain percentages. And then you had to go into each of your columns and then make sure it's associated with the right category. In Canvas, as you've seen, I'm doing exactly the same thing, but I'm creating groups and I'm just clicking and dragging them into the right group, sorting them. And now I come out here and simply assign the weights. So let's say discussions are 20% of the grade. Quizzes are going to be worth, 45% of the grade, and individual assignments are worth 35% or whatever. And that totals 100%. I just did that math in my head. Impressed? I'm not very good at math, but anyway, there it is. But watch this. Notice that I have this extra credit category though. So unlike Blackboard, if you tried to go over 100%, it would give you an error message and say, no way, Jose. Okay. In Canvas though, if I have an extra credit category, I can simply come in here and type in a percentage and look, my percentage goes above 100% here. What that means is I can, whatever I assign, a student has the potential to earn up to 5%. They're not guaranteed 5%. They still got to do the work. But whatever assignment or assignments are an extra credit, whatever grade I give it, it will give them a potential of up to 5% of their overall grade. Okay. However, and this is where that above 100% comes into play. If the student decides to blow off the extra credit assignment, like, I don't need it or whatever, and don't do it, they're not going to be penalized. Why? Because their grade is being calculated, 100% of their grade is calculated in these other areas. Okay. Kind of a thing of beauty. By that same token, you may have in your class, you may have some assignments that are practice or drafts or whatever that you do not want calculated. If you do weigh your grades, you can create another group and just make it worth 0%. So if I go out here, I'm going to save this real quick. But if I create a new group and these are my ungraded assignments or whatever, I can make that 0% of the grade, and any assignment that I put there doesn't get calculated. Simple as that. Okay. I know that's always a concern whenever you are moving to a new learning management system, and maybe it was this way in Blackboard too. And that is, are my grades calculating properly? Okay.
Yep.
I know that's always a concern. And there have been some doozies because I don't know if I have any chemistry faculty out here. I literally had a professor who was a rocket scientist. He literally worked for NASA back in the day, and he was teaching our chemistry classes and physics and things like that. And he came to me when we moved over to Canvas, and he showed me an Excel spreadsheet that he used for grading. And it had every rule you can imagine in the grade in that spread. I think there were features in Excel that I don't even think Microsoft knew were there. Okay. I mean, they were like all these if and then scenarios and pivot tables and drop add and all these other things. If you make a certain grade here, you can skip these next two assignments or whatever. And he brought me that spreadsheet, and with a kind of a little smirk on his face, he says, "Will Canvas do this?" And my answer is no, Canvas doesn't do that. I don't think any grade book does that except for when you create it there. So keep it simple. It doesn't have to be an NFL rule book. It just has to be something simple, or whatever. But he wanted to keep that. And I said, that's fine. I said, but just make sure that you have, the students know their grades in Canvas. That's where they're going to go to look for them. So if you want to keep up, keep your grades manually kind of just updated in Canvas, that's fine. You can use whatever grading system you want, but that's pretty much the deal. We tried to keep everything sort of simple and all of that just to make sure it was calculating properly. I would probably drop his class if I was in there, to be honest with you. But that's how you weigh grades. And that's how you can create rules for those grades as well, and how you add extra credit. While I'm on the assignments area here, and I want to be sure and have plenty of time for your questions, but one of the other things I want to share with you, and this is, and this is something, if you're new to Canvas, that kind of freaked me out when I first went into Canvas for the first time, was that when you go to your assignments menu, immediately coming from Blackboard, I used Blackboard for some 15 years or so. Coming from Blackboard, I thought, aha, this is where I go to create assignments. And that's true. You can create assignments up here, whatever assignments you can see, there's different types of assignments. But as I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, what are my discussions doing here? What are my quizzes doing here? Shouldn't they be in the quizzes menu or the discussions menu? And they are. If I go to discussions, you'll see that these unit discussions are right there, proudly displayed, in the unit discussions area or whatever. But what in the heck are they doing here in the assignments menu? And that is because the assignments menu is basically sort of the staging area for your grade book. An assignment, Canvas sort of has two definitions for the word assignment. The first one is what you're thinking. An assignment is something I give to my students. They submit it to me in Canvas and everything's great. And that's true. The other definition for an assignment in Canvas is anything that you can give a grade for. And in Canvas terminology, that only means three things. You can only give grades for assignments, which is a very nebular term, right? Because assignments can be occurring inside of Canvas, or they can occur in a classroom. They can be a paper test or whatever. There's also quizzes that occur in Canvas that students take inside of Canvas. And there's also discussions that you can choose to make graded discussions. And so in doing that, by adding a graded discussion or a graded quiz, or an assignment of some kind, basically that's how gradebook columns are created. Now, I know that in Blackboard, you could go to the gradebook. This is something I kind of miss, I'll be honest with you. I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of a retro feature in Canvas, but I miss the fact that in Canvas and in Blackboard that I did everything in the grades, okay? If I wanted to create a column for a gradebook, I went out there and created a column. Okay. If I wanted to weigh my grades, I weighed them here. Kind of one of the only is it unintuitive, non-intuitive maybe features of Canvas is that in the grade book, you can't create a column. You can't weigh your grades there. You do that in the assignments menu or the assignments index, as we like to call it. So if I have for example, a paper test. Now logic would dictate, oh, that's a test, right? So I got to create a test. No. Okay. What you would do is, if it's a paper test, one that they take in the classroom, is you would create an assignment. Think of assignments as your way to create columns, okay? And now maybe this is a paper exam, or on paper exam, maybe I should say that. You know, it could be a classroom presentation. If I'm a nursing or allied health professor, it could be an observation or practicum or some other kind of thing that I want to keep track of my students on, whatever it is. I'm just going to create an assignment and give it that name. And I could say, you know, this exam is being administered on paper. You don't have to really put anything there if you don't want to, but just in case. And then down here, I would put whatever points that exam is worth, 100 points or whatever. Now, this is what I was mentioning earlier, the assignment group. If you've created your groups already, this is where you could then move it to whatever group it belongs to, tests and quizzes or whatever it is, okay? Note that you can choose not to count something toward the final grade. Whenever you create any assignment, you can do that, okay? Under the assignment type, submission type, remember, this is not going to be delivered online. It's going to be on paper. So on paper just simply creates a gradebook column that allows you to enter the grades for that particular assignment. Okay, and it just kind of denotes that it is on paper. You can give it a due date, all of that good stuff, and save and publish it. And then in your grade book, you can go out and do that. I want you to know that whenever you create either an on paper or a no submission type exam, you still can add rubrics. So if you are grading a essay that students did the old-fashioned way by Underwood typewriter with the lazy E and white out all over it, okay, I'm not going to tell you a whole story, but I'm just going to mention to you, when I went to college, folks, I took a typewriter to college. I really did. It was at Underwood. That's how old I am. And my student ID, can anybody guess what my student ID was? Or what number was used for that?
Your social security number.
My social security number was my ID, and they would post them on the wall along with all the other social security numbers. Oh, long for the days, the simpler times when there wasn't identity theft and things like that. But thank God we moved on from the typewriters, right? But if they were to type up an essay or maybe do a speech in front of the class and I'm grading them on that speech, I can attach a rubric to this. I can create a rubric for public speaking. I can, if I have rubrics already in our account, either at the account level or below, I can find that a rubric that is out there. So if I have one for, I think I have one for WSU Tech, to be honest with you, from a previous training that we did. Somewhere out there, maybe not, I don't know. I got lots of rubrics out here, folks. There's my online discussion rubric or whatever. And if I wanted to use this for, for a class, then by adding a rubric, and I just grabbed some old rubric here, but what will happen is that as my students or as I'm grading their paper or whatever they're doing, if I go to the speed grader, and you can get to the speed grader by going directly to the speed grader or in the grades, I can find the column for my assignment here. There it is. And I can go to these three dots and go to the speed grader here. And all the speed grader is going to allow me to do is students aren't submitting anything, but as they're giving their speech or as I'm grading their work, for each of the students, you'll see that I can go down student to student here, or use these arrow keys to go from student to student. I don't see my rubric. I guess I didn't save it. Oh, well. But I could choose the rubric here and grade using the rubric. And I can enter their grade and add any other comments that I want to use there and move on to the next student. I don't know why that didn't save. Let's see if I've got that again. I guess I didn't add it, I guess. Let me find a rubric here. Oh, there's my WSU Tech writing rubric. Get out of here. All right, use that rubric. Oh, and you always have to, well, I added it. I think I did the same thing. I don't know why I didn't take. On paper exam. Okay, go to the grades. Let's see if it took this time. Yay, okay. So I can actually view the rubric. And as I'm going through, I can actually use that rubric to assist me in grading, whatever the criteria is. I can add my comments here as well. and I can give my students some more meaningful feedback on their assignment. Okay. Another thing that you have is the ability to add your own comments down here. So as you grade their paper, you can give them some other feedback, even though it's an on-paper test. They didn't submit through Canvas. I can come out here and save that, give them their 85. Everybody makes an 85 in my class. And then down here, I could add my comments. One of the things that I want to also be sure and point out to you, and I know most of you know it's here, but in this tool called the Speed Grader, where you can grade student assignments and things like that, even they're in Canvas or outside of Canvas, you have the ability to just simply add some just-in-time comments down here. You do have the ability to make file attachments if you want to attach a resource or something for your students to do that as well. You can also record video. If you wanted to give them a video feedback here, I could record a little feedback for them. Maybe they gave a speech and maybe I just want to give it to them. And, sometimes the written word can be misconstrued, but if I give them a video and they can see my face and hear my voice, sometimes it communicates just a little more effectively than just, what it can be construed on the written word there. The Speed Grader also gives you the ability to dictate your responses as a comment if you want to. So for example, I could click on this and say, if I click record, overall, I really enjoyed using your paper. I wanted to make sure that you don't use as much whiteout next time, and be sure and check your spelling and grammar. And you can use that as well. Okay. And you can also use what's called the comment library. The comment library allows you to front load any comments that you feel like you may be using over and over and over again here. Okay. So by adding items to your comment library, if, for example, you can see a couple of examples that I have here, overall your essay includes some excellent points, be sure to follow the APA formatting guidelines or whatever, I can use that comment for different students. And the neat thing about the comment library is that it follows me, the professor. So if I leave this class and go to another class or next semester or whatever, and I go to the Speed Grader, my comment library will be there. You can add as many comments as you want to the library. Okay. All right, just a few little things here. Let's go ahead and go back to some questions here. Susan and Stephanie, I want to make sure, and Brad and the rest of you, let's make sure we get some questions answered from you guys as well. Just kind of going through. It looks like Christy, you've been busy.
If I may, that's why I was saying, let's make sure that others get their questions answered.
Oh yeah,
before you do
absolutely,
any of
for sure.
Because
so let's throw.
I
No,
was
you did
kind of
great. You got a lot
filling
of great
this out
questions.
So let's go to them first before you do.
You
mine.
bet. Okay, so let's throw the floor open just for a moment here, and I just want to know, either based on what we've just been talking about or just in general, let's get some questions in. Does anybody have any questions, burning questions that you want to ask at this time? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Okay, you can certainly either chat them to me or as they come, or you just open your microphone and go, yeah, Matt, this is just an open forum. I always try to have a little bit of things. Oh, your video and audio aren't working. You don't have any questions right now. Okay, fantastic. That's all right. That's okay. I just want to make sure we're leaving time for everyone to have questions.
I'm good here too as well. I'm keeping muted because I have background noise. Sorry.
No, you're
yeah,
fine.
it's
You're
good.
great. Good stuff. Anyone else? Just want to make sure we have a few others here.
Casey, did you have any questions for him?
I'm actually just more interested in answering some of the questions on the Q&A sheet. So that's why I don't have any myself, but I except for, I guess I have the same ones that are some on that sheet. So.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, good deal. Good deal. All right. And like I said, just do not, as I go through some of these things, as those of you we've worked together now for several months, you know how sometimes I will go off on little rabbit trails and start chasing little things here and there. Just know that you feel free to just say, stop, man, I want to talk about this. Let's talk about something else too. Because I mean, like I said, I want to just make sure that your time is being well used here. And we're kind of going through and just making sure you not only see the answers that I've provided on some of these, but also just to make sure that you understand how we arrived at those answers too, right? Some of you ask about multiple attempts for different assignments and tests and things. I did give multiple attempts for students on a submission for an assignment, as well as in quizzes. So in quizzes, just to kind of quickly show you an example, and by the way, if I haven't shared this for you, I'm terribly sorry. I want to make sure you all have this as well. This is the Q&A document, and it's on the agenda for today, and you can just go out there and take a look at some of these as well. Just very quick to show you what it looks like from an instructor standpoint. If you do allow students to take a test multiple times, all right, you're giving them multiple attempts, then you at Canvas, unlike Blackboard, remember in Blackboard how you could what was that called? I sometimes forget some of the names. It's been about 6 years since I've used Blackboard, but I believe it was that you could remove an attempt. It was called something specific, but basically you could delete
clear attempt.
Clear
yeah.
attempt. You could clear. Of course, I had to make it harder than it was, but yeah. So if you have to clear an attempt, you do not have that ability in Canvas. In Canvas, every attempt is preserved. All right. And that's just the way it is. And it's by design. We want to make sure that, again, imagine if you were in Blackboard and the student said, well, I submitted something, and the instructor said, no, you didn't, or whatever. Then the student says, well, you must have cleared the attempt. In Canvas, there's not going to be any of that. All right. One other things I like about Blackboard too, but Blackboard, I like Blackboard, it's fine. Other things I like about Canvas, that's who pays my check right now. One of the things I really like about Canvas is, and this is something we experienced a lot with Blackboard, and it was mostly probably due to our poor infrastructure, but in Canvas, if you have a test go down in the middle of a test, for example, if it's like a power outage or something comes through and the student's right in the middle of the test and the power goes out or whatever, the nice thing is that Canvas will preserve their attempt. And as an instructor, you have the ability to resume it for them, okay, or submit it for them, and it'll pick up right where they left off. Now, you may have to go in and give a little extra time for them to complete it, or if a due date or deadline is already passed, you may have to give them a little extra time there as well, but you always have that ability. So I'm just going to go into a quiz here. Let me find one that has data in it. And I'm using new quizzes because that's sort of, I think, what we're focusing on. Canvas. Okay, one thing I hate about Canvas is we have two quiz platforms out there right now. Okay, so classic and new, and they can be a little confusing and not very intuitive. Hopefully that'll change at some point, but it's something that we've been kind of dealing with for a while. In a quiz, when you click on the quiz, you have to go down here to what's called build. And build is where, that's fine. Build is where the test is built, but it also has other things too, like your settings and things like that up here, okay? Your settings is where you can set multiple attempts, you can shuffle the answers, all the different little security type things that you have there as well. One of the things I love about multiple attempts in Canvas's quizzes, and I think it's a little bit unique, is that you can keep the latest score, the highest, the average of all of the attempts you're giving them, or the first score, which is a little bit cool. If you want to give them the first, I'm keeping the first attempt and the other two attempts are just practice or whatever. You can do that as well. In new quizzes, you can also invoke a waiting period. So if you give your students multiple attempts, you can also put a waiting period of hours, minutes, or days, or a combination of the three. You also have a feature called build on last attempt. And what this does is it allows the student, when they're taking a test, if you're giving them, say, 3 attempts or whatever, and let's say they're taking a test of 50 questions, 50 whatever, and let's say on their first attempt, they get 35 correct and 15 incorrect. When they take the test the next time, if I enable build on last attempt, they're only going to be presented with the 15 questions that they missed. Okay. And for each attempt, each time they get it right, they're only going to have just the questions that they missed, and that's what's left to do. This is a really good feature for like skill building and things like that, where they're not presented repetitive information of things they already know, or at least guessed well at, but was able to build on that last attempt. Now, in your setting or in your tabs across the top inside of this quiz, you have a button up here called Moderate. And you can see here that for each of my students over here on the left, and yes, I know these are all Star Wars related names. I work for a very young company, and many of my colleagues are into Star Wars and Star Trek and all kinds of stuff. But you can see each attempt here, and you can see how they did on each attempt. In addition to that, I can see how much time they took on each attempt. Now, this can be a bit of an indicator. So I'm in the Moderate tab up here, and Leia Organa here has taken the test 4 times. She gets 10 attempts in this particular test. She's taken it 4 times. She made a 77 on the first attempt and then subsequently did more poorly afterwards. You can also see how much time she took. She took 2 minutes and 26 seconds on that last attempt there. Now, this can sometimes be an indicator that, I mean, it's not conclusive. I want to be sure and point that out. But, you may have a situation where I'm giving a 50 question test and I had a student make a perfect 100% and they took a minute and a half. Okay. It could be an indicator that maybe they got a little help. Okay. By that same token, I've had students come to me, I don't know why I did so poorly on the test. And I look at it, it's like, well, there were 50 questions and you took a minute and a half. Okay. It could be an indicator that you didn't do very well. It's not conclusive, but it's there. Another feature you have in this Moderate tab in your quizzes is this log here. And what I can do with this log is I can see exactly, and there's I can see what browser they're using, what operating system they're on. I can see how they answered the question, how much time they spent on the question.
Now,
I've got a little bit of data.
Can I ask about this? Is this
Yes.
active while they're taking the quiz, or is it only available to the instructor after they finish?
This is real time.
Okay.
So if I'm watching my students in a classroom take a quiz on their computers, I can go out there and look exactly where they are. Okay. One thing that you might see out here sometimes while we're on this little subject here, is occasionally you will see student left test taking page along the timeline. Okay. Now, conventional wisdom would say, aha, they must have left and went to another website or opened another browser or whatever. That could be true. However, the definition of student leaving test taking page simply means, and I did a little research on this because I wanted to make sure, because I had students and faculty that were saying, aha, I've got my students cheating right there or whatever. If a mouse is idle, in other words, they make no keystrokes and do not move the cursor around for 30 seconds, it will register as leaving the test taking page. So just be aware of that, okay? Just like how many minutes they took to take a quiz and how well they did on the quiz is not a conclusive indicator that they cheated. The same thing is true for leaving the test taking page. The only way you can really tell is if you're using something like Lockdown Browser with Monitor or whatever. Now, are y'all using Lockdown Browser? I'm just curious if you're using like Respondus for something.
Yes, we have Respondus for some.
I know I ask that every time. I apologize. I forget sometimes. Go ahead.
I have another question about multiple attempts.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily quiz related. So.
Oh yeah, on like assignments and things. So the reason I mentioned that is just to kind of show you that you can in real time not only view the log and see what they made on each attempt, but you can actually see every attempt. Okay, and actually if I clicked here, I could actually go into the attempt and see what they got right, what they got wrong on that quiz. Okay, but their latest would be this 4th one here, I guess. Yeah. And also notice that you can add extra time or attempts here. Now, this is where here, if the student is taking the test and they have a power outage, or a student comes to me and they're like, Dean Miller, you know, I haven't gone by that name in years. For some reason, I'm not able to finish the test on time. Could I have an extra attempt or something like that? Or I had an excuse, reason I couldn't do it. Could I get an extra attempt? By clicking on moderate, you can see that this is where you can give additional attempts above the number of attempts that they have already. So right now it's telling me they get 3 attempts. If I want to give them one additional attempt, I can come out here and give them. There is no clear attempt. There's only adding additional attempts. Also, there's that reopen. So a student's in the middle of a test and some happens to them and they get kicked out, like what happened to Kylo Ren here. Then by reopening it, I can reopen the last attempt and give them a chance to finish it. I may have to give them also extra time. As I'm watching them take the test, I might see that one of them is not quite finishing on time. I can go in and give them some extra time. I can also just remove the time limit if I want to for that student. And that only occurs to this, only applies to this particular test, this moderate column. Okay. Notice that you have what's called an accommodation column too, here in these moderate settings for your quiz. And this is where if you do have a student that needs an accommodation, such as extra time to take on a test, that's a very normal accommodation that you'll see. As many of you already know that, for example, a general rule of thumb is like time and a half. So if all of my students get an hour, my student gets 90 minutes. And naturally, that is a sort of an agreement that's made between you, the professor, your Office of Accessibility or Disability Services, and the student. Okay. And it's a very kind of discrete process or whatever. But if you do have a student that requires extra time, all of mine have been added here. But let's just say, for example, if I choose accommodation, under the accommodations menu or the accommodations column here, I do want you to know that when you change an accommodation for a student in a class, it applies to all the assessments for that student in this class. So even though I'm in this one test here, because I'm making the change to the accommodations, it will apply to all of the course assessments, all the new quizzes in this course. So if I give that student a time multiplier or just some additional time, that when I save that, this time multiplier, this is 1.5, which means that on this test, maybe I've given them an hour, then this student gets 90 minutes. Okay. But however, since this applies to all course assessments, maybe I've got a little quiz that's only 10 minutes. Well, this student will get 15. I don't have to go into each and every quiz and change the accommodations for every student that requires an accommodation in every single quiz in my classes. I can do it one time right here, and it'll apply to all the quizzes. Okay.
Hey, Matt, if it's okay, I don't know
Yes.
how much more we have on this, but I know we have a lot more questions and
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
about 35 minutes left.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, thank you.
What do you have a question also that you
No,
you
I
have
was
a-
just hoping we could get through all the questions, hopefully, but if not.
Oh, yeah,
um,
for sure. Now, I did provide a lot of answers here, so I would invite you to go out here as well. We do not really have a way to conditionally format. Christy, you had a question about multiple attempts again. I'm sorry, on
That's
assignments.
fine. I added it to the bottom of the Q&A.
Okay.
If you want to see what I typed. But when you were answering this question, it reminded me of something. We've had a lot of instructors who are like unpublishing their modules because they don't want students to be able to turn in late work, and or
Okay.
they're not wanting them to make multiple attempts. And I don't think it's necessarily on the quizzes. I think it's on assignments, or maybe in participating in
Yeah.
discussions, or there's some reason that they're trying to unpublish modules instead of setting them up
Going
to
into
let
the
'em
assignments and
flow.
changing the setting.
And
Remember
they're
that,
not wanting them to randomly turn stuff in. So I don't know
Right.
if you could go over that.
Yeah, so I think the solution to that would be on the assignment itself, is just to make sure you're only giving them one attempt, right? So on any given assignment in your class, I'm just going to go out to an assignment real quick and just go to edit and show you what I mean. Well, this extra credit assignment, a good example. It's an assignment. So if this were an assignment where students are submitting something online, maybe a file upload assignment or whatever, Remember, right below that, you have the ability to control the number of attempts that you're going to allow there. All right. So if it's a one-off, I'll give them limited and one attempt. That's it. So they won't be able to resubmit that assignment over and over again. Okay. The other thing that you have available to you is down here under the assign access. And again, this is where you'd put your due date, right? So if I wanted to make it the 20th, whatever time, then I can make it the 20th. But also notice that you have availability from and until. All right, this controls this from and until date controls the access of this assignment. So if I were to say to my students, you have to turn in this assignment, it's going to be due on the 20th, but you're only going to be able to access it from the 16th at midnight, and then you will no longer be able to access it after the 20th at midnight, same as the due date. By
Will they
doing
be
this,
able to read the assignment and see their submissions and their grade for it? Because I guess
Mhm.
my worry is if instructors are unpublishing stuff, then
yeah, that's very
they're
manual. Yeah, they shouldn't really have to do that. They shouldn't have to unpublish it to because what happens if they unpublish an assignments, for an example, and I think what you're saying is they're unpublishing modules.
Mhm.
Okay. And that, I mean, that's a prerogative that they have. If they don't want students to be able to access that material after it's done, that's really up to them. What I'm saying is like on some of these assignments, yes. Yeah, if I have it here, for example, and I've only made this assignment available for a certain period of time, and a student comes out here, let me change the availability date so I can get to it. So I'll just leave the availability date open at this time. So that way I can automatically submit something as a test student. So it's going to be only available until the 20th. If I were to go submit this assignment really quickly, I'm going to go in as a student. This is my extra credit assignment. And I come out here and submit something, whatever this essay is or whatever. There's my Beowulf essay. This is just a Word document I'm uploading here. Started it on time, you get that little confetti, which is nice. Okay. Once that's submitted, okay, and once my professor has graded it, okay, once my professor grades it, I'm going to go back in as the instructor. Find this assignment. There it is. I can see that the test student has turned something in here. All right. If I go to the SpeedGrader to look at what the student has submitted, I can grade it. I can make my annotations, make my comments and my annotations and all that good stuff. All those things, give them a 95, whatever. Okay. I've graded this assignment. When I go back as a student, I'm going to go back in as my test student really quickly. Here we go. And let's say that the September 20th is long past, but I still want to go back and see what my professor gave me on this assignment. Then I can simply just go to my grades here. This is the student view, by the way. I can go to my grades. I can come down here and see my assignment. If I click on it, not only am I going to see the instructions, if there was a rubric involved, I am also going to see right down here in just a moment, I'm going to see their annotations. And I can see this all the way through the end of the term. Now keep in mind, what I'm restricting access to is the assignment itself, not what I received on it. Okay. And eventually that little swirly should show up or whatever it is. But anyway, you get the idea. Okay. That I can revisit this all the time.
I think that's helpful because when you unpublish things, the students
You forget
can't
to publish it again.
refer back
Yeah.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that, again, and this is, like another question that you might have had, I think I saw it earlier, is what about submissions, multiple submissions? So if I give them 2 attempts, for example, on this assignment, same assignment, and the student comes in, they can submit again. So they have the original attempt, but notice they have what's called new attempt down here. So they can choose new attempt and they could submit an assignment here. Whatever that is. I'm just going to grab any old document there. And they can submit an attempt on top of their previous attempt. Okay. I do also want to point out to you that some instructors might be curious about, well, they just uploaded 1 file. What if I wanted to upload 3 files at the same time? You can upload as many files as you want. I can add 1 here. I can add another here. Whatever. I can add multiple files to in one assignment.
Okay. Thank you. I think that answers the
Okay.
question.
So Matt, kind of my question now for this is that, and the reason it used to be in Blackboard that I'm sorry, I'm comparing the Blackboard, but just
That's
this is, I
okay.
think what faculty are used to or were
Mm-hmm.
used to, but they were used to having where they could set the module to make it where it doesn't open it or it closes at a certain date. Like,
Yes.
yeah, and just to clarify, if it's a simple yes or no, that's not still an option right now, right? Where they can.
It is actually now an option.
Okay.
This is a brand spanking new feature that has just come out in the last couple of weeks in modules now. If you go out here to modules, you can assign modules to everybody. You can also set the requirements and everything else. You can also assign to individual students. But there is also, let me remember how to do this. Edit. So, you can lock until a certain date. But I thought there was a, you know what? Maybe I'm a little mistaken. But you can set you can control the visibility to certain people as well.
Okay.
But you can only release the module after a certain date if you want to. Right now, we don't have an end feature on there, but for every object that's in the module, pages and quizzes and things like that, of course, you can set beginning and ending dates.
Right.
You can now set a beginning and ending date for pages. So whenever you have a page or content or whatever, you can also assign pages to individuals or to everyone for a certain time period. So if you want certain content to be released, just like you would for an assignment, a quiz, or a discussion, you can now do this with pages.
Be
So
nice to have the Intel on the modules.
I know. That's probably coming pretty soon.
Okay.
There are a couple of things that are actually coming down the pike. We always get little sneak previews here and there, and some of them are fairly new. But another one is in the speed grader. Someone once asked, it may have been one of you guys, in the speed grader, you know how you can toggle from student to student? What if I'm on one student, but I want to toggle from their assignment to assignment? And that's another feature that's coming, where you could flip from one assignment to the other for a particular student. That makes sense.
Cool.
I don't know enough about Lucid to give you an educated response. It's another new feature that I'm still learning, so I haven't really learned a lot about Lucid yet. I can provide you some resources here, though, that might be beneficial.
On the one about Panopto, I can show you that, Christy. I know how to do that.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have I know how to do it with Studio. Yeah, and it's probably going to be an external assignment. And you go out to Panopto and do it that way, as if you create a Panopto video with quiz questions. That's more of a Panopto tool. I do want to be sure and share with you. Someone asked about converting quizzes from PDF or Word to that, if it's generated by AI or otherwise. Respondus does make a tool. It's called Respondus 4 now that you can purchase. It's actually fairly affordable. We used to have it at my institution, but there is a free quiz converter tool San Diego State University came up with it. It actually works really well. This tool has
I've
all the
played with
instructions.
that.
Have
Yep.
you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is very, very specific. And yes, and by specific, I mean, if you have a multiple choice question, 1 period, 1 space, not 2. Okay. The question for each answer, A in parentheses. I've tried it with periods and other delimiters. It has to be a parentheses end there and 1 space in the answers. And then your correct answer would be denoted with an asterisk in front of the correct answer. Same thing for true or false. And then you see your multiple answer type questions and so on. Does work really well. If you have a Word document, my recommendation is to convert it over to like a plain text, like a notepad type thing. And the reason is you know how Microsoft Word, as soon as you type 1 in a period, it starts formatting numbers. This can contain no formatting. It has to be plain vanilla text. Okay. And with that, that's why I use Notepad. I really love it. And if you get really good at like search and replace, where there's 2 spaces, only 1, that kind of thing, it can really speed up your ability to create that. I've done the same thing with like A period, B period, C period, and then make them A in parentheses, find and replace. Now there's a couple of times where it's bitten me, but you get the idea.
Thank you.
Oh, the a student annotation tool. Okay. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of this tool, but that my opinion doesn't matter. It is a feature in Canvas. If you do have a an assignment of sorts, you can create what's called an annotation, student annotation assignment. And we'll just create one really quickly. No big deal. An annotation. And here we'll just give it a grade of 100, whatever, put it in our extra credit, whatever. All right. Down here under submission type, you would choose online, and then you would choose student annotation here. Okay. Now what this does is it allows you to upload a file that students will be able to annotate. All right. How would this be used? Well, I might use it for math. might use it for identifying or labeling something on a map or labeling something on the human body or whatever. You can create some annotation tools that way. And see, I've got a little example here of a document. It doesn't really matter. You can upload any type of file here, whether it's an image or whether it's a document. Got here. Yeah, we'll just try this one here. So I'm uploading this file. It's like a PDF file or something like that. All right. And it's going to be, I'm going to take away file upload. So this is going to be a student annotation. All right. I'm going to go ahead and save and publish it just to show you what it looks like from the student's angle. Now, why I don't like it is that it's not the most intuitive things. I love the idea of this assignment. So if I'm a student and I want to complete this assignment, I'm going to come out here and it's basically going to give me a tool to annotate. The annotation tools that you have in SpeedGrader, essentially students will have that particular tool as well. What I don't like about it, unless they've made some vast improvements to it, I do think it needs a little bit of love in order to be a better tool. But once it loads up, depending on how long that takes, this assignment is to identify a run-on sentence.
So am I understanding correctly that kind of like you could have the students highlight all the things they
That's
think
correct.
are run-on sentences?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, the only
Got it.
problem that I have with it, though, and hopefully it'll load up pretty quickly for us, but what I don't like about it is that if a student fails to click the little checkbox after they make the annotation, it does not keep the annotation. And for me, when
Oh,
I've used it in the past, and students were like, "Well, I highlighted it, Mr. Miller, and I don't see whatever," the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze unless they really improved that tool, because it's really easy to overlook that little thing. In fact, I was practicing with it one day and I failed to do it myself. And I'm like, what happened to my annotations? It's almost like not having that rubric attached because I
Mhm.
failed to do something. It's the same thing, but again, it can be really kind of I don't know, it could be a frustrating thing if something like that. There's probably better
So
ways
if
to do that.
So if you really wanted to use it, you should be sure and have really clear instructions.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, be sure and
Okay.
click the little check mark or whatever once you've annotated this assignment or whatever.
Okay.
That's good to know.
All right.
Christy and Diana, and if you, just in case you don't know, they heavily encourage in MRW, when the students do the work in the MRW, they heavily encourage annotation.
Okay.
So that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah,
My
I don't know
pleasure.
that we need to keep waiting
Yeah,
for
okay, we'll
tomorrow.
keep
That's
going.
fine. We can move on to the next
We'll
question.
keep going. Renaming test banks. The only way I really know how to do this is that with the new item banks in Canvas, you can make them visible to the entire institution and all of that. My only thing is just maybe to settle on a naming convention and then go in and rename them. That way it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but if you have people that are responsible for their own item banks to go out and make those. The nice thing about the item banks is that they are shareable. You can share them with other folks and things like that and give them editing or
But also
capabilities that way.
deletable. Everybody can delete another person's.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, that's true too.
Okay, so I guess I was a little bit, as we were working on the item banks for course, we were having a hard time finding it once we made it. And so you have to check mark share with this course
Course, yeah,
in
share with
order
this
for it to
course to be in that
so
particular course. Yeah, that's definitely
okay,
something you have to do there.
And
okay,
then,
all
Christy,
right,
what we've been doing for nomenclature, so you know, is it starts with like the code, like ACC, and then the course number, and then the name of the item bank, and that's what we like.
okay.
Search check. We had her put SGT in front of everybody, so we're trying to. So what we probably need to go back is make sure we have everybody do that, so that
Yeah,
Okay.
another couple of things that I don't like that are kind of, to me, there are a couple of other negatives or drawbacks with item banks is that if I create an item bank and add questions to it or whatever, and I want to import more questions into that, I can't. I can't import questions on top of what I've already imported.
Yeah, but you have to go into the quiz and add them one question at a time.
Yes, one question
Okay.
at a time, which is a pain in the rear end. But
Now,
there's a few little
it's
things like that.
called
And I know that new quizzes are still, there's a roadmap for new quizzes and there's still improvements being made. So just be aware that, there's a few things out there that are still being worked on too.
Okay, so when they call it item bank, are you able to put anything in it besides quiz questions?
No, just quiz questions.
So really, it's a question bank. They
It's a
just didn't
question
want it
bank.
to be
The
called the
reason we
same
don't call it
thing because it's
question bank because we
classic.
had that goofy question banks from classic quizzes, which are incompatible.
Okay.
Are you guys using classic quizzes at all? Okay, good.
It's,
All right. I'm
we're
working with an
discouraging
institution
it.
right now that just moved over from Moodle, and they started moving before new quizzes was allowed to be, important as new quizzes. And they have a lot of question banks that are attached to tests, and I'm having to show them how to create new quizzes out of a question bank, or take a question bank, make a quiz out of it, convert it to a new quiz, export it, and then import it as an item bank. And it is a process, folks. It is
Casey
ugly.
helped me figure that out because we've had to do that.
This glossary page, this is kind of, blueprint template. Okay, so this is one of those little things. It's a setting thing, as we like to say. Pardon my lack of punctuation there. Boop. If you have a blueprint course that has a designated front page, okay, when you push that out, it will replace whatever pages are out there. I made that mistake the hard way one time with about 500 or so math sections. I created a little module and I put a nice little page on it and I blueprinted it out, and it replaced everybody's ongoing currently in progress math courses with my goofy little homepage. And so the phone started ringing and emails started coming in. How do I get it back? And it was an easy fix. But just know that what I would recommend doing on a blueprint course is to take away the front page. Just don't do the front page and let whatever existing front page is there. If you have a template that has the front page on it or whatever, just keep that. And that taking away that setting, that should not override the front page or the home page of the individual, or whoever the recipient course
Can
is.
you
Does that
show
make
us
sense?
what you mean by that, Matt? Because
Uh-huh.
we've tried. I think we've tried that,
Have you really? Okay.
and it didn't. The issue is that our home the homepage that comes over from the template. By the way, we do things a little bit differently than probably law schools, but we have all of our live CRNs because we use Banner. I don't know if you're familiar with CRNs as far as Banner is concerned. All the live CRNs get created from a template that is associated with our main, or like our academic affairs sub account where all the
Okay.
CRNs go under. And so that gets copied over and all the courses get created with that. But then we copy the blueprint in there, and the content from the blueprint goes underneath whatever was added by the template.
Okay.
If that makes
Let's
sense.
see if we can.
So
Let's see if we can replicate this.
So what? And
Go
the
ahead.
issue is that we tried putting the homepage. If we put the homepage in the blueprint, what it is that homepage links to like items that like start here, items that only come over from the template. And so if we were to just put the homepage in every blueprint, those links that are the links on the homepage will link back to like modules or the syllabus or things like that. They break.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. I can see that. Jeez.
Yeah, if I know what setting it is that we have to, but I think we turned off. But I think you have to have something selected as the homepage regardless, don't you?
Well, I mean, yeah, like you can have the modules selected as the homepage or something like that.
Well, and that's the way they are in the blueprints, because we don't have a page.
And that's what's replacing it. That's what's
Mhm.
replacing with the modules page. Okay. Okay. So because of that.
And we've turned off where the teachers can't choose their homepage.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Because we didn't want them to change that.
However,
Yeah.
it's not coming in with the template showing the homepage we want. The blueprint is overriding.
Overriding it with the modules.
Yeah, it'll show until we
Yeah.
copy over the blueprint. It shows in the live CRNs the
Mhm.
homepage does until we copy over the.
That's why I didn't know if maybe there was something that was happening in our blueprint course development that's then causing it to not play well with the template. If it's something
Yeah,
we can
that's
fix.
well, normally, like I said, it would be kind of an if or it would be kind of a situation where in a lot of circumstances you would choose between blueprinting your templated material out or using a template, right? That automatically it's inherited from the main template whenever it's created. And so by combining the two, I can see where that's the problem. The only solution I know of then would be to create a home page for your blueprint and push that out with them. And then to have, your instructors would then have to edit their home page, right? But or give them the ability to edit their home page if you want to unlock that for them.
Okay. All right.
That's the only solution I can think of right offhand, because right now your blueprint course doesn't have a home page. The home page is the modules, right?
Mhm.
And when you're pushing that out, it's replacing all the templates with this module view, whatever the module
Mhm.
view is. So the fix
Yeah.
would be, but again, not giving the instructors the ability. Well, I mean, maybe if we go back to the pages menu then and go to view all pages, try this for me, Casey, on one of those courses. Maybe if you go to the pages and view all pages, now I've already established this as front page, find the home page, choose the 3 dots and make it the front page, and then go home. That may be a simple fix. It may bring the home page back.
Okay.
Do you follow me?
Yeah, but I don't think the blueprints have home pages.
No, but the template does.
But once the blueprints arrived in there, in the live course, they would have it. So
Would
you're
it-
saying this is a fix we have to do after the live course has been created, not something we can do in the blueprint in
So
advance.
if I understand the question correctly, what you're saying is that you have a course that already has a template in it with a home page and everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yes.
you're blueprinting on top of that course,
Mm-hmm.
and it is resetting the home page to the modules page.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I think you should try is, and again, this is a retro fix, right? Whenever it does that, have the instructor go out to their pages.
We turned off where they can't do that either.
Oh, they can't go to view all pages and just set
Nope.
homepage or
Nope.
set from. Okay. Okay. I guess the only workaround then would be to add a homepage to your template or to your blueprint, and
Mm.
and push that out there for those particular
All right.
courses.
It just would not be able. It can link to those things, Christy.
Right.
Like that, because right now we have icons on the homepage and link out to
That
different
link
area,
out to the
like the
let's
Start
see.
Here module and the syllabus, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, thank you for helping troubleshoot.
Yeah, I hate that that's not working properly. The glossary page, I actually looked at this. I went in and did a little research on it. And man, I was really excited about it. About creating a page that had glossary and being able to follow this little tutorial. I did it and it didn't work. And I did a little more research, and it turns out that this is a customization that this particular university did. And what it was doing is that you could create a page and you can have glossary terms for in your course. And by creating that page with the glossary terms using the format that they provide here, they prescribed, then when you go back into your course, everywhere that word is mentioned, there would be like a little underline, and you could hover over it and see the definition. I thought, dang, that's cool. I never knew. I was today years old when I learned this in Canvas. Well, I went out and tried it several times. It didn't work. Got a little frustrated. Went did a little more research, and it turns out that that feature is very unique to that school. It's some kind of deep configuration change that they made or built for their instance. And so, unfortunately, I don't see it working for us right now. I did
Okay.
put a link here, and maybe against my better judgment, you may want to take it down as soon as possible or whatever. In the Canvas Commons is a little course. It's a free course that's updated from time to time. It's called Do Not Fear the Code. And Do Not Fear the Code has all kinds of just fun little HTML hacks that if you
Mhm.
want to be a little bit more fun in your course and play around, you can see all kinds of different things. So for example, if I want to make a background color for my page, you can see how I can do that by copying the code.
And actually,
This
Matt,
little code.
you showed us this another time, and we actually downloaded it already and put
Oh,
it
okay.
into a course. And then we actually had a teacher that's also done a lot of that, and she referenced that course, and she's going to tweak it, and then we're going to make it available where this in catalog, because we have catalog, and have
absolutely.
it as a course where people can register and enroll in it in catalog.
Oh, that's wonderful. And some of these, like I said, some of these may or may not work depending on, the editor might change and things. So just be aware of that. But it sort of goes into the codes. And I do not know code from squat. All right. I do not know how to code. I do know how to copy and paste and be a little bit dangerous whenever I grab something and put it out there or whatever. But just know that this is like a free course. So, it's sort of like, whatever you want, but it does a lot of little things. That annoying floating text box, if you want a floating text box out there with some little kid dancing, that's weird. Then you can choose, those kinds of things as well. So there's all kinds of fun little things, including there is one that has sort of a pop-up dialog box here. So you can click on it or not. Hang on, that's not the one. Well, maybe that is the one. You should be able to click on it and comes up. It'll pop up a person's image or whatever. But anyway, it's not working here in the comments. I'd probably have to download it and put it in my course or something. But at any rate, you can see there's all kinds of little codes there that you can utilize. There's two versions of it. This is version 2. The version 2. I think I have the original one in mind, but this is the next version of it. Kind of cool. Question does come up from time to time too about providing annotated feedback on an essay question in new quizzes. Unfortunately, right now it's not supported. So you can't annotate, unfortunately, like using the SpeedGrid or annotation tools for essay type questions. But I'm going to throw a big yet at the bottom because I do know that is something they're working on. So before too long, hopefully we'll have that ability out there to be able to see that as well. As far as the limitation is concerned, there's I've never really I don't know if I really quite understand the question mostly, because typically, like I said, you can uh, yeah, how many questions
I
are
was simply
displayed at one time?
repeating. I was repeating an instructor's question, so
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I
Okay,
know
yeah, I can
personally what it
understand. So
was.
it may be in a bank or something like that. I've used questions, like I said, in the past. I've had tests that had hundreds of questions on them, 180, 200 questions, and it may just be a display issue or whatever. But I did put an exchange out there. Hopefully that will help as well. Partial credit's another thing too that sometimes comes up. How do I give partial credit on certain things? And I've provided some basic answers for those as well, hopefully. I think that pretty much, unless I'm missing something, I think that pretty much answers at least all the questions on this guide here. Can you guys think of anything else maybe that I didn't go over thoroughly or? Oh, this one did come up too. How can I create a quiz without notifying people? You can always, whenever you're making a change or do something like that, is to simply not notify them of that change.
I guess if nobody else has any questions, I would be curious to ask. We only have a couple more minutes. What
That's
your
okay.
favorite new feature is that Canvas has implemented recently? Because I know they've done a lot.
So the new feature currently right now that I really like, that is getting better. Unfortunately, I don't like the first iteration of it, but I do like what's coming, and that is the rubrics feature. Rubrics is being completely overhauled. They're bringing out some new rubrics. Eventually, folks, this is the exciting part. You're going to be able to print rubrics, export them, share them, all of those kinds of things that you're going to be able to do. Also, kind of a neat little exciting feature that's coming is in the rubric building itself is actually adding the rich content editor where you could in a rubric have images or something or whatever kind of iconography or something for the rubric or some kind of a some kind of a little video or audio or whatever you wanted there to kind of show or demonstrate what you're going to be looking for. So I don't know, that's a neat feature. I think it's just kind of cool for that. Trying to think of what else is just sort of just kind of coming down the pike. There's always something new. In fact, I was in training. I was doing a training on new quizzes in Louisiana a couple of weeks ago. I was on site, and as I was demonstrating the settings in new quizzes, there was I noticed there was a new feature called feedback that allows you to have a feedback box in new quizzes. So now when you go to new quizzes here, and in your quiz settings, let me go to what assignment that actually has some quizzes. There we go. There. Ish. So when you go to your new quizzes settings, and some of these, it didn't take much to excite me, okay? But here you have a new little setting down here called Show Custom Feedback with Results. So when the student is finished with the quiz, you could put in, you have the rich content editor. You could use this as sort of just overall feedback for the quiz, but also directions on next steps and things like that. You could always add that there. This was just something new. I was just sitting there training and I'm like, yeah. And after this, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what is this? And it was like, there it is. So, sometimes as trainers, we get blindsided by some of the new features. Lucid is one that I'm curious about. I'll be honest, I don't know much about it right now, but it is a now made free for all of our clients. Is a feature that's out there that does whiteboarding as well as flowcharts and things like that, that you can create collaborative spaces for those things. I do not know how to use it yet. I'm still working on that. I'm still learning, but it is a new feature that I think another new tool, another new thing to have in our little holster of things to use if you want to use them.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, I think this is it for us, isn't it? This is all of our trainings. Oh my goodness. I do want to just basically, I want to give all of you guys a really big thank you for letting me be your trainer for these last few months. It's been a really joy for me to be working with you and getting to know you guys a little bit better, and Christy, Diana, Casey, all of you guys that have really kind of been instrumental in putting these together and helping us plan and schedule and sort of weed through it. I know as change goes forward, it's going to be, it gets easier over time. I will say that you'd probably know that already, but with each semester, it will get a little easier, hopefully. and as we get more accustomed to using Canvas and sort of moving away from a previous LMS, hopefully it's something you guys will enjoy and grow with Canvas. I always say I don't call it learning Canvas anymore. I just call it part of the journey. It's just a journey I'm taking with Canvas, and I'm never going to learn it fully. There's always going to be something new to discover. But if you kind of keep your kind of mind open with that and just realize that it's an evolving, living, breathing thing, then it gets to be a little more fun working with it than saying, oh crap, I got to learn something new, or whatever. I'm really looking forward to learning Lucid and some of the other. We've been doing a lot of purchasing lately of other different tools and things, so be expecting a lot of great things to come. They are putting a lot of work. Another new feature I really like too, folks, from the admin perspective, the admin analytics, there's a lot of work being done on those as well to really give you a really good 360-degree view of a lot of things that are happening in there. Casey, thank you very much. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I don't have a badge, but I just want to say thank you all for that. If you have any other questions or anything else like that, let's not make this the end. If you have anything I can help you with, I want you to feel comfortable reaching out to me. So please do let me know how you guys are doing or any pain points that we might be able to help with us on this end. One of the things that I want you to also know is that here at Instructure, we know that you spend a lot of money on this tool, and so we want you to use it. We don't want you to use part of it. We want you to use all of it in some form or fashion. We want you to get bang for your buck whenever you do that. And remember, I was a Canvas client before they paid me to say these things, and there's a reason why I chose to work with them. So thanks again, guys. It's really been fun, and hope to hear from you guys soon. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
We've enjoyed having you as our
Thank you.
instructor.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank y'all. Bye-bye now.
Bye.